Stakeholder.
In gambling, an independent party with whom each of those who make a wager deposits the money or counters wager.
A person with an interest or concern in something, especially a business.
In emergency management, any person or entity with a vested interest in the survival and recovery of a given community. You.
Welcome to Stakeholder Prepping.
And welcome back to Stakeholder Prepping, where you, yes, you, are the stakeholder in your own survival. We bring out the practical from tactical and examine all kinds of different angles on prepping. We are your hosts. My name is Chris.
And I'm AC. And Chris, so what do you have for us today?
Well, I thought this one would be fun, especially for an episode 2. We are going to be exploring 12 of the most awesome prepping items you can buy for under $1.
Oh, I get under $1. Okay. It's, when you told me about this originally, I was like, is this the idea for episode 2? I thought I was a bit skeptical. Like, is this going to be the banger episode we need to get people coming back? And then I thought about your homily in the first episode about starting small and how everything is scalable and getting into the nuts and bolts. So now I'm on board, because what is smaller than $1? You can only go up and get bigger from there. So I guess I will concede that you're absolutely correct. And this should be the topic for episode 2, as it's literally the ground floor of preparedness.
100%. And, just in case your audio sounds a little sketchy, that's because you are our co-host at large, right? I mean, you're all over the world.
I know we've tried to address that. We addressed that a little bit in the first episode, but I am all over the planet. So sometimes maybe my audio is going to sound that great. Hopefully it sounds like we're both sitting there in the same room together, ideally. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be better sometimes and not so great some other times.
I love it. And it means that you are putting in the work. And
That's
I am all about
That's right.
putting in the work.
I like
So let's take a look at 12 prepping items that you can get for under $1. We did our research on this. We actually verified you can find all of these items under $1. Whether it's the dollar store or Home Depot or wherever we found it, you can find these for under $1.
That's right. And when we were going back and forth about this, and we were talking about should we do the best preparedness items under $10, or what are the best preps under $5, or we got down to how about let's do a dozen under $1. And it made me think of that scene from Something About Mary. Do you know this one where Ben Stiller picks up the hitchhiker? Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And the hitchhiker has the business plan. He says, "Have you heard of 8-minute abs?" And Ben Stiller says, "Well, yeah, sure. But what happens when someone comes up with 7-minute abs?" And Ben Stiller says, "No, man, not 6, it's 7." And they go back and forth a little bit. That's kind of how I felt, like rushing to the bottom of a dollar. Although it would be cool to try to come up with something like the best preparedness items under 10 cents, where we talk about all the things you could do with a single stick of gum or 2.5 rounds of 22 long rifle or something. I'm on board with that too.
You get one match.
You get one match.
Survive on one match.
Survive on one match. I like it.
Yeah, if you don't like the extra, or if you're missing the extra minute, we'll send it to you for free, right?
That was it. It was. He said mine is 7-minute abs, and Ben Stiller said, well, what if someone comes with 6? And he goes, no, 7, man. Like 7 little chipmunks sitting on a branch, eating lots of seeds from Uncle's ranch. 7, man. So, yeah, that's how I felt when we were going back and forth about $1. I felt we were racing to the bottom there, like Ben Stiller and the hitchhiker.
So yeah, this is 12 things that you can get for under $1. And the reason that we really kind of settle on this is because everything is getting more expensive. I mean, you look at inflation, you look at the price of beans and cola and gas going up and up and up and up and up.
Sure.
Well, there's got to be some sort of starting place. And I think this is a really good one, especially if you are starting out in the prepping sphere. This isn't going to break the bank. It's not going to be a lifetime commitment but these things could potentially save your life, and that's why we really kind of went with this. I mean, I think what we should do is start with, we picked 6 each.
Mhm.
Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. But I'm going to challenge our listeners that let's do 5. And if you listen to this podcast and you can come up with 5 items that are better than ours for under $1 a piece, email us at stakeholderprepping@gmail.com. And if we agree, we will send you the entire list for free.
I like that. I like that. We'll send you $12 worth of items that could save your life one day. I like that. So if someone out there, has 5 items that are better than anything we mentioned here, we'll send you all of ours. I like that.
I like it. So
what about criteria? Did you have a criteria of yours? Because I know we did this. We didn't do this together. We kind of both went off and found our own list. So what criteria did you use for yours?
Well, the first criteria was, can you find it for under $1?
Sure.
Kind of defeats the point if I'm looking at
That's
a
right.
$150 bag on Amazon.
Mhm.
But I looked at the usefulness of that independent item, the adaptability of it, and then the uniqueness of it. So
Mm.
is it just a one trick pony, or can you think outside the box with it and really get the most out of it?
Okay. I like it. It's interesting for me. I was looking for stuff under $1, but I really wanted to try to not stick with just consumables. Like I really wanted to try to find things like tools. So not just Funyuns and hand sanitizer. I wanted to find actual tools, things of value. I don't know if you did. I didn't have a specific scenario in mind. I merely went hunting for preparedness items under $1 with the most intrinsic value as a standalone item during any old SHTF event, but I didn't think specifically about floods or hurricanes or forest fires or alien invasions. I was just thinking about intrinsic value for an SHTF event, something that may not have a lot of value sitting at the store. It's only worth $1, but if you had that item when you needed it, it would be priceless. I think that was what I was looking for.
Okay, I like it. And yeah, you're gonna get a round and a half of 30 carbine for $1.
Yeah, no 30 carbine. But do you remember? Do you remember? I don't know if I'm a little older than you. Do you remember when you could get 50, I think it was 50 rounds at 22 LR for 99 cents. I have a box of Thunderbolt that says 99 cents, like on the box, not a sticker, but the box was made with 99 cents on it. Do you remember this when you could get 22 for 99 cents?
I have a couple of boxes of 22 Thunderbolt ammo that it was like 525 rounds, and it's got the price tag on it of $4.99.
Yeah, right. So probably the same era. I want to say that probably went away maybe late 90s, but I do have a box of Thunderbolt that was 99 cents at some point. So if we were going in the time machine, that would absolutely be on my list. There's no way you're finding any box of ammo ever for 99 cents, but it wasn't too long ago that you could. And I think 50 rounds of 22 would have definitely been on the list.
Yeah. 100%. Back when going to the range day did not break the bank. It wasn't $1.80 for a single round of 9mm.
Right.
I
right.
100% understand that. So we're gonna have to do an episode on time travel now that you brought it up.
I think so.
But
yeah,
we'll leave that for further on down the road.
All right.
Let's jump into our list. Let's start at the bottom, work our way to the top.
All right. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I can go
Okay.
first. So
I like it.
Number 6 on my list is a magnifying glass.
Okay.
The cheap plastic or glass, if you can find it.
Mhm.
Just that super cheap magnifying glass. And yes, you can be the little kid who runs around lighting ants on fire in the driveway,
Mhm.
or you can start a fire with it. You can attach a piece of aluminum foil to the back of it, and now you have an improvised signaling mirror that will
Ooh.
literally signal somebody for miles. If you are lost, magnifying glass and some aluminum foil or reflective tape can save your life. And I just think it's such an undervalued piece of equipment, because how many times have you poked your finger on something and gotten that little itty bitty splinter that just starts driving you absolutely batshit crazy, and you
Oh,
can't
I didn't even
see it?
think about that. Absolutely. I've been on a hike before, and you're sitting down on a log and pulling your boots off, and you just can't see it. At some point, I'm like, well, I've got a knife. I'll take the toe off. We'll deal with it later, because I cannot walk another foot having some little minuscule tiny piece of wood stuck in my toe. So I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right.
And we talked about in episode 1, we kind of briefly joked about dysentery and, the crap that you can pick up from water or wherever.
Oh, sure.
You touch something and you get a splinter, that's directly in your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's sepsis inside of 24 hours. So having that magnifying glass and something to pick that splinter out is just invaluable to me.
I like it. I didn't find any magnifying glasses. I guess maybe I wasn't looking. I do remember seeing the readers, the 4X readers for $1. That's 2 lenses. But do those work just like a magnifying glass? Could you take a reading glass with some amount of magnification, and could you start a fire with those?
You can. You just have to
Okay.
worry about, now you have to kind of reverse your lens, and you got to think about that focal point, because
Mm-hmm.
the more powerful the lens, the closer that focal point is going to be. So
Oh,
you may
okay.
have to back out a little bit, and you may have to give it some extra time. But yeah, 4X lens on a reader
Okay. Yeah.
glasses,
Okay.
that'll do.
Because
the
then you got
job.
2. Then you're buying 2 for $1.
There you go. And
Do
you've
you
got
do,
spare glasses if you need them.
do you remember this? Like I said, I'm a little older than you. There was an episode of MacGyver where he took the magnifying glass, took the lens, just the lens out of it, and he took a watch crystal and then rolled it up in a newspaper and made a telescope out of it.
I think I saw that rerun. I think
This was,
so.
we're talking about MacGyver circa 87. I don't know if it's doable. I don't know if that's real information or not. I'm not going to fact check Richard Dean Anderson, but I do remember that episode where he took the magnifying glass and his watch crystal, and he made a telescope out of the magnifying glass.
And theoretically, it all works. You just have to line up those focal points, and you've got a 4X or 5X or whatever your capability
Sure.
on those readers is. You've got a little spotting stick.
Okay, somebody tell
So
me if that's
there's
real. I
another
want
use.
someone to email us and tell me if that's real. I really want to know.
So let's jump into your number 6. What was number 6 on your list?
Okay, all right. Some of these might be a little out of order, but my first one here, I'm going with a substance that's been part of human history for thousands of years. Evidence of humans processing it going back as early as 6000 BC, a substance of great importance to human and animal health, as well as industry. Habitual use of this substance has been intimately connected to the advance of nomadic to agricultural life. And we're going with sodium chloride. This is salt, just table salt. Salt. I'm going with salt, man. Check this out. So salt, you can use it for preserving food. Salt can be used to preserve fish and game by drawing out the moisture. You can use it in a brine like that, or you can just roll raw game meat or fish in the salt, and it'll extend the life even of a smoked meat. With personal rehydration, salt can help maintain hydration by providing your body with electrolytes. You can add salt to water or teas. I actually do this myself a lot at home when I'm out working out on the farm or with the animals and stuff like that. As a Gatorade alternative, a little salt and some lime juice, and I'm telling you, 0 calories, thirst quencher. You're fighting scurvy. Other uses you can use.
Gotta watch out for the pirate disease.
You gotta watch. I'm telling you. But as a as a cleaning agent. It removes stains like blood and grease and wine. And if you do run out of toothpaste during SHTF, you can use salt to brush your teeth. And so salt has all kinds of great functions. And I will say, I know that this was the under a dollar exercise, and I found about 5 different options of salt under a dollar, including the 1 pound bag of Himalayan sea salt. And that's this pink salt that comes from Pakistan. It's got trace minerals, including calcium, potassium, magnesium. It's mostly sodium chloride. Nutritionally, it's about the same as salt, but I bet most nutritionalists would argue that the dissolved solids might be better. Now, that's your under a dollar. And Chris, do you remember that 1 pound cardboard can of Morton's table salt, the iodized salt that your mom bought in 1987? Somehow she never managed to use it all.
Cabinet above the stove. Yep.
You absolutely do. So that is $1.69. So I know this was $1 episode, but if you're a big spender and you want to step it up, it contains iodine. So iodized salt has a few other benefits, thyroid health. We're ever talking about the funicular fallout thing, it's always those iodine pills that they give you to protect the thyroid. So I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to say that it does contain iodine, and those are the things they take. So okay. The iodized one could be a little beneficial. So for the extra 69 cents, maybe don't be a penny pincher when it comes to your own survival. But there are a number of options under $1. So that's what I went with. I went with salt. Specifically, I would say the 1 pound bag of the Himalayan sea salt for $1.
I like that you brought up, fighting the scurvy, fighting the pirate disease.
No, that wasn't the salt, right? Like I said, I don't want to provide medical advice here. That was what I do with a little bit of lime juice. But if we were going to have an honorable mention, you can get 2 limes for $1. So there you are. You're making Gatorade and fighting scurvy.
I like it. I really do. So,
what's your number 2?
It's a tough one because I think I've got to go with trash bags.
Okay. All right. I like it. You're talking about big, black, hefty trash bags. Did you find something like that for $1?
Yeah. So the kitchen trash bags, like the 15-gallon kitchen. I mean, you can even get the small, like 5 packs of the Flex Force ones or whatever they call them, where it's flexible to the outside. But think of what you can do with a trash bag. That's an emergency shelter. That's an emergency poncho. That's an emergency water collection source. That's a lifesaver in and of itself. And maybe you do use it for trash because hygiene during an SHTF event is going to be,
of course,
you've got to take it somewhere. You don't want to just shit where you eat for basic purposes, but having a trash bag, it's so multi-purpose and multi-role. If you need to, you can cut it apart and turn it into cordage. You can braid it together, and you've got a triple strength trash bag that it'll stretch some, but it's potentially enough to hold up a canvas tarp and keep you dry. Or maybe you're just using the trash bag itself as your shelter. You obviously don't want to close your head in there. Well, depending on the event, you may be driven to that. But I will tell you from experience that a trash bag, not the best idea to sleep in, unless you are absolutely pressed for no other material. You will sweat your ass off. And zero airflow, right? Yeah, you will not get any sleep in that thing, but you're going to wake up wet, and that's never a good thing. So always have some sort of ventilation if you're going to be inside of it. But a trash bag, just a basic trash bag, there's so much that you can do with it that you don't really think of because it's such a commonality item.
Interesting. I've heard of the trash bag before, and it was on my list. I actually looked at trash bags, and I'll say I was specifically drawn to the black trash bags for two reasons. One, as a as an emergency shower, because you can put water in it and leave it outside, and a black trash bag will actually heat up.
Mm-hmm.
And from my personal, this comes, this is the tactical from the practical. From my personal experience, if you live in a neighborhood where you are prepared and you're the only one on the block with electricity, then that might be a reason for unwanted people to come knocking. So putting a black trash bag up inside your windows to black out the home when you have power could be a use.
Absolutely. Yes, and it's not just that. It could be if you are on the road, if you're stuck on the road, putting black trash bags up against your windows so that people cannot see that you are in there resting.
Sure.
Now you are not a target. It's just another abandoned vehicle. And that
Sure.
we'll get into another episode, I'm sure, about budding out and the dangers of
Mhm.
the roads. Great movie, by the way.
Oh,
But
yeah, you saw it. Good. We're going to talk a lot about the road.
yes, we're gonna do another episode on best disaster and prepping movies, but
I like it. I'm going to be the douchebag that tells you the book was better, but let's not get off topic now.
I think the flexibility and adaptability of a trash bag is just
Mhm.
underspoken, and it cannot be overstated.
And for $1, yeah. So what were you saying? You got 5 trash bags for $1? Is that what you found?
Depending on
You
the
find more?
quality,
Okay.
5 to 10 for $1, because they're not
Wow.
expensive to produce, but
Mhm.
if something happens, they may never be produced again.
Sure. Yeah, I like it. Okay, trash bags.
So, what would you say is your second item on this list?
Okay, speaking of time machines, I'm going in the way back machine here. We're going back to World War II when super glue, known as cyanocrylate, was discovered by accident in 1942. Some scientists at Eastman Kodak, we all know Kodak, they were trying to develop clear plastic gun sights for World War II. It was rejected, forgotten about, but then Kodak rediscovered their own invention in 1951 by some other dude working there. So this goes back. This is what good companies do, right? Where they invent like the coolest thing ever on planet Earth and they totally forget about it. This is the electric car all over again. So Kodak forgot. They forgot they invented it, and then some other guy came and found it and reinvented it. So besides the typical uses of super glue, which include fixing about absolutely everything and gluing your fingers together, it can also be used to seal wounds. Again, I'm not a doctor. Yeah, I know you're right. You probably have. There's reasons to not do that, but in an emergency situation, I absolutely would. And again, I'm not a doctor. In the mid 60s, Kodak applied to the FDA to use super glue for medical purposes, and it was totally rejected because of potential toxicity. But then during Vietnam, it was used to temporarily seal wounds on the battlefield, and it's credited with saving a ton of lives. So in the late 90s, a derivative of the original one was approved by the FDA as liquid bandage under the names Dermabond and Trauma Seal. If you remember those, that's literally super glue. It's super glue with Dermabond and Trauma Seal. That is super glue with maybe a couple of little tweaks to it, but that's all it is. So, and
we have Dermabond in our first aid kit, and I never looked at the ingredients. It's
99% super. I think super glue is probably one of those things that has no other ingredients, but the basic ingredient is super glue. But that's all Trauma Seal is it's just it's super glue with a couple of tweaks. And super glue, Chris, I don't know if you've heard of this. Have you heard of mixing super glue with baking soda?
No, I can't say that I have.
Oh, I went down a YouTube hole last night, man. So mixing super glue with baking soda creates this super durable plastic-like substance that's got a cement-like consistency. It's almost like poor man's JB Weld. So you can mix it with a small amount of super glue and baking soda together, and it hardens almost immediately into the solid substance, and you can use it to like plug holes in plastic or seal gaps. And I'm not kidding, I saw a guy on YouTube take super glue and baking soda mixed together, and you can make a blade, like a workable blade, just kind of like you would with a JB Weld material. It can't be picked up on a metal detector, but maybe that's a topic for a different episode. But yeah, the only thing is, a lot of these guys said you got to use it in a very well ventilated area because apparently the off gassing is super duper toxic. But yeah, you can super glue. So all the things you thought you could do with super glue, you can also seal wounds besides just sticking your fingers together. And when you mix it with baking soda, watch some of these YouTube shorts. It was crazy. It basically makes this plasticky concrete stuff that you could work into anything, including an actual blade.
So next time I'm driving through a cornfield and I put a corn stalk through my radiator, super glue and baking soda.
Super glue and baking soda, and you can make this plug exactly, and it hardens almost immediately. You don't have to wait for it, and you've got this plastic plug to fix just about anything. So that was my number 2. If you look at the dollar store type super glue, it's all the same. I don't think brand name super glue is any better than not brand name super glue. But for $1, you could get a little more in 2 different tubes, or you could get a little less overall in 5 different individual sealed tubes. But think about how many times you've used super glue and how many times you use the whole tube. It's almost like never. So I would buy the little tubes that have, a super extended shelf life, and then you've got kind of all the super glue you need when you need it, and you've got about five uses out of that. So that's what I would recommend.
I like super glue on there. I really do.
It was kind of interesting.
Remember, from the tactical standpoint, don't use super glue. Glue your thumb and your finger together and then try to shoot, because that's not
good
gonna
call.
work.
Use some less important fingers to work super glue.
Exactly. Use your
pinky, big toe, something you don't need. Good call. Good call.
I think super glue might beat out my next one.
What's your number 3?
I'm gonna go with zip ties.
Oh, zip ties were on my list too. They didn't quite make the cut, but zip ties, when I saw the zip ties, I thought about you, because I was thinking of more tactical uses of zip ties than the standard bushcrafty uses. But what are you going to use zip ties for?
So there is the bushcraft use. I mean, you can make snares, you can make traps, you can collect animals with zip ties.
That's where I was going here.
You also have the flexibility to, if you break a shoelace, you can replace it with a zip tie. If you have to pin somebody down, you can replace handcuffs with a zip tie. If you have to hold something up in a tree, if you have to seal something like a hose to a hose bib, you can use a zip tie. There's so many different rapid application uses for zip ties, including, and this is one that I have seen done. So to give you a little bit of background, I went through a course called OEMS and DMOC, which in the Army, it's basically taking your guys that are going to be the medics on the team, not the actual medic 68 Whiskey MOS, but your immediate support medics, field grunts. And OEMS is crash course in field surgery. Okay. So DMOC is the same thing. A little bit different, and I went through both courses at the same time. About 6 months before we deployed. So
these are the guys that are armed with super glue and a trauma bandage, and that's about it.
Yes. So I got to carry an extra 20 pounds of medical gear that thankfully we never had to use. But we went through how to properly apply things like the cauterizing QuickClot.
Oh
So-
yeah, quick clot, sure.
Oh, that shit burns. But
Mhm.
we went through kind of the emergency field splints, how to stretcher somebody, how to do all of this to save a life, to get them back to the actual medics who could then truly save their life. This was just basic, very basic field level, get them back to better care.
Mhm.
But a zip tie as a tourniquet is potentially going to save your life. Yes, you will likely
Wow.
still lose the leg, but
Mhm.
would you rather lose a leg or would you rather be dead?
So it sounds to me like I looked at the zip ties and there were a bunch of different options. It sounds to me like you were saying fewer larger zip ties would be your go-to for $1 rather than 25,000 little tiny zip ties. You would go with the 10 big zip ties.
I personally would, yes.
Okay.
We're going for like the 6-inch, kind of the wider 1/4-inch thick,
Mhm.
by 6-inch long or 8-inch long, whatever you can find zip ties. Yeah,
Mhm.
the variety pack is going to help with different size, emergencies or situations that you come up with. But
Mhm.
having that flexibility versus your budget, I think zip ties need to be on there because there's so much that you can do with them. And yes, you can completely cut off circulation to that a limb if necessary.
Mhm.
If you do that, you need to get that person to immediate medical care because otherwise they're going to lose that limb. But
Sure.
there's so much that you can do with, you can link zip ties together if you need a bigger loop. If you need
Sure.
to twist them, they're flexible. They will stand up to punishment over time. The one thing they are susceptible to is actually UV. So I'm sure you've come across the old zip tie on the farm that was used to hold up fencing.
Of
or
course.
whatever, and it's
Yeah, and
super
they-
brittle.
Very brittle.
because
Break
it's
all the time,
UV.
right? Got it.
Yeah,
Keep it out of the
it's-
sun. So
it's
use
just
it for a task that's not sunlight related.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably the key. If you can use them only at night, that would be
Yeah,
perfect.
only use zip tie. I like it. Okay, only use zip ties at night. Check. Got it.
So-
I like that.
Where are you going with your number 3?
Okay, so my number 3 is not very exciting, but I am going with a can opener, and specifically the little U.S. Army surplus P38 can opener. If you're familiar.
I have one
And-
on my desk.
Do you? Good. See, it's timeless. And again, this is not a dollar store find, but you can find them for $1. This is the definition of it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's 38 millimeters long. Did you know that's why it's called a P38? It's 38 millimeters long. Apparently, they made a P51 can opener too that was slightly longer, 51 millimeters. I didn't know that. So the internet is an amazing place. But
I mean, the military went with something not freedom fractions.
it made sense. The one time they did something that made sense. So yeah, exactly. No freedom fractions. It's 88 millimeters long. Weird, right? So they're about 50 cents online. Came out in World War II, 1942, for opening the bailout rations. The regular C rations had a little key on the bottom of them, but the bailout, the parachute rations didn't. So that's where this P38 came from. Now I'm sure that you can find another way to open your tin cans, and there's always that guy who's just going to say he'll use his fixed blade K-bar or something, but please don't be that guy. As a nice guy, I'm begging you, don't do that to a quality blade. Anyone who brags about opening a tin can with a knife is somewhere between botulism and missing 2 fingers. Okay, so just don't do that. If you're that opposed to spending 50 cents on your precious preparedness budget on a simple tool like this, please send us an email and I'm going to give you one of these for free. I've got a pile of 50 of these things, and I'm not kidding. I will send these out for free to anyone who asks for one until I'm out of them. Just don't abuse a blade anymore by stuffing it into a can of Dinty chili like Rambo, please. So,
Not to mention the botulism.
not to mention between the botulism and cutting off your fingers, those two things, don't do that. So please, P38 can opener, 50 cents. I will give you one. So that's my number 3. It's simple. It's so simple and it's so cheap and it's so easy. But in a situation when you don't have one, that is the definition of intrinsic value.
I can see that, and really, I keep them on my desk. I keep one on my desk. We've got them in our tornado shelter,
Sure.
and I can really see the value of it because, yeah, I think we got a 10-pack for $8 or something like that,
Right.
and that was
Yeah.
off of Amazon, like same-day shipping.
Mm-hmm.
We figured, hey, we're gonna have one in our tornado shelter.
That's right.
May as well have a bunch and throw some cans of tuna in there so that we aren't going completely hungry, but toss in extra food for the dogs. So the dogs are probably going to get tuna and we're going to get MREs or something like that. But,
It's funny you say that. I was reading a blog from a guy who goes and hikes the Pacific Crest Trail, which is the big trail that goes from like San Diego to Canada out here, kind of like the Appalachians out by you. And he was saying that he always carries a can of dog food with him in his pack, because if he doesn't carry dog food and he carries some other food, he's going to get hungry and eat it. But he's not going to eat the dog food until he's like really, really hungry.
okay.
And so he always carries a 1 can of dog food as the emergency food, simply because he knows he's going to have to be really, really hungry to eat the dog food. But dog food, again, usually doesn't have the little built-in key, right? Some of the soups nowadays, they have the built-in key, but like the tuna you mentioned, it probably doesn't have the built-in key. You're going to need some kind of can opener to get after it.
Yeah, and they're not the pop top, whatever, peel and stick, or I can't remember what they call those, but I always thought that the P38 came from the P38 Lightning fighter.
Me too. I was like, I always assumed that they must have just made it out of old aluminum, like the Airstream trailer. And so like, yeah, we made them out of P38s, but and I'm not saying the internet is always right, but according to the interwebs, yeah, I don't know, measure that one you've got and let us know. They said it's 38 millimeters long.
Holy crap, it is.
So maybe it's a coincidence, but maybe it works out.
Maybe it's also the fuse length for some critical fuse on the P38 and the P51, the Mustang. Maybe that was the critical fuse length, and it just happened to be 38 and 51 millimeters.
And it just worked out. You never know. So anyway, 38 millimeters long, 50 cents. That's my number 3. So going on, what's your number 4?
Before I go into number 4, I will say the P38 actually makes a decent keychain as well.
Oh, sure.
Because it's got that little hole in it, and you can put a key ring in there and attach it to your keychain, and then you're never without it.
I just thought of this. I'm going to grab one. I'm putting it on my keys right now because I want to see if that makes it through TSA. That'll be part of the EDC through TSA episode if it does.
Okay.
Let's see if I get arrested with the P38 on there. It does have that little blade, so you never know. But I'm gonna risk jail time and losing pre-check for you guys. So I'm gonna try that out and report back.
Let us know for sure.
I like it.
All right, so my number 4, and this one you can go way over the top. You can go way under the bottom, depending on what quality you want to go for. Duct tape and or electrical tape.
Sure. Could you find something resembling duct tape for $1?
Yes, but it was the 1 inch wide instead of the 2.5 inch wide duct tape.
That's where they get you. Okay.
And it was a shorter length. It was only like 50 feet. Electrical tape, and found 150 feet at Home Depot, it was super low quality, so it's probably going to be very brittle. It's not going to last
Mhm.
terribly long. But how often do you need tape just to hold things together?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking the makeshift bandage, but sure. I mean, there's thousands of uses.
Yeah, putting your trash bags up in your windows, you've got to
There you
have
go.
something to stick it
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
you may as well use tape. But especially electrical tape, with how flexible and how stretchy it is, you
Mhm.
can temporarily hold your clothing back together. You can
Mhm.
waterproof your socks if you duct tape it to your skin over your boots. It's going to take
Sure.
some coiling.
Okay.
It's going to take some time, but
Yep.
it's doable. So it really depends on what do you need it to do, and it can do it.
Wow.
Duct tape,
Okay.
electrical tape, anything along those lines. If you need extra cordage, yes, you can tear it down. You can braid it together, get triple the strength, and it's
Mhm.
sticky. You can also use it for traps. If you are that desperate where you're looking at eating mice, rats, small birds, things like that, you lay
Eat
it
the
on a
bugs.
surface. Yep, it's gonna suck all that up. I'm personally, I don't think I've ever been hungry enough to eat mosquitoes, but I can see it.
Yeah, I've
Maybe.
never been that hungry, but I've done it on accident a lot.
Yes, I have definitely done that. I have eaten plenty of bugs on accident. Uh, but yeah, just tape, and not
Okay.
masking tape, not the stuff that's going to just, that craft tape that's going to
Right.
tear and
The blue tape,
disappear
nothing
on
like
you.
that. Yeah.
But actual solid, either duct tape or electrical tape, depending on what's
Mhm.
available in your area, I see it as just an invaluable resource for when you need it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. That's definitely. I mean, I have no idea. I probably don't have a lot of dollar tape laying around, but actually, I guess I would say that for the electrical tape, the 99-cent electrical tape is probably pretty standard. I probably do have quite a bit of that as my go-to electrical tape. I don't know if there really is a higher quality of insanely expensive electrical tape. I could say on the duct tape side, sure, you could spend $8 on a good roll of duct tape, but on the electrical tape, my go-to is probably $1 roll of duct tape or of electrical tape.
Yeah, and if you want to splurge and go for the duct tape, go for the high quality stuff, it's
Mhm.
still not going to break the bank. It's
Right.
it's duct tape, but
Yep.
Target, we're looking at under $1. Electrical tape is the way to go.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I like it. I like it. Um, so what are we at? I'm down to, yeah, so halfway there. Right. My number 4. It's funny because you had picked zip ties, and zip ties were my alternate for the paracord bracelet. First and foremost, this is the dollar prep that actually requires skill. So if you don't know your knots, learn them. And I'm one of those people that doesn't know my knots, but I do need to learn my knots. I think if you're gonna use paracord efficiently, you're gonna need to know your knots. I know it sounds boring, but knots are so important, not just to survival and disaster preparedness, but just to everyday life, like securing a load in the back of a pickup truck. There's literally hundreds of uses for paracord,
yeah, I
so
agree with that.
I'm not gonna go over all of them, but I'm going to ask you for probably some more tactical uses after I go through this, because there's probably a lot of things I didn't think of. The first, I'd say shoelaces. This is actually the only use where I have ever taken apart one of my paracord bracelets. I had a bootlace snap while hiking, and paracord came in clutch. So I've actually done that. Paracord is perfect for weaving your own dog collar and or dog leash, and in Chris's case, 5 dog leashes. So
Yes.
it's and because it's dynamic as opposed to a static line, kind of like the electrical tape, it just has enough stretch to not pull your shoulder out when you've got 5 dogs tugging on it. So there's a lot of uses. You could make a toe strap out of it if it's genuine 550, and I'm gonna say that the dollar store one probably isn't, but I don't know for sure. That's what that 550 means. It means that it has a 550-pound static load capacity. So
Yes.
if you have genuine 550 cord, you can double that up or triple it up and make a very strong toe strap. Just be cognizant that if you apply shock to that line, that value goes down. You could easily pull a heavy rolling load if you're slow with it and you don't shock the cord or the line by pulling quickly. What about a wardrobe malfunction? When disaster strikes, your perfect outfit for the apocalypse. That paracord's going to add a little steampunk flair to it. If your belt breaks, let's be honest, you might drop a couple LBs in the end times and you might need to cinch up those trousers. So handle wrap for almost anything. That was something I thought about. I bought knives that have come with a paracord handle wrap. So a tool, including a knife, can benefit from a paracord handle wrap. And it just looks cool. It's in first aid. It can be used as a tourniquet or a sling or to secure a splint. So possibilities are endless. Besides all that stuff, you can use it for a lanyard, bow drill, hammock suspension, traps and snares. Again, like I said, the downside is you have to know your knots. And lastly, you can take this individual strands out of 550 cord and use them as fishing line or as fire tinder. And if we haven't touched on the clasp. So depending on the particular paracord bracelet that you go with, how it goes together matters, because you could use that clasp or buckle to repair a broken buckle or something that has to be closed and open frequently, like a shelter door. The one I found,
I never thought of that.
Yeah, and you can harvest that buckle and use that as a door for your emergency shelter or anything that needs to be open and closed frequently. The one I found for under $1, it's kind of got one of those U-shaped toe hook buckles where it's a U shape and then you turn the little like buckle thing into it, but you can use it as a buckle. And Chris, obviously I'm leaving out 1,000 ways to use paracord, and I'm coming at these from kind of the practical side of things. From a tactical standpoint, is there anything glaring to you that I didn't mention?
Well, I can tell you that when we were going through sniper training, going through practice stalking and things like that, and I mean, you've got your ghillie suit. Well, we would tie in basically dead ends of paracord to our ghillie suit, because the whole idea is it blends in. Well, you take natural vegetation and tie it to your ghillie suit, and then every time you relocate, you untie it, you pick up the next branch or the next leaf or whatever it happens to be, and you tie that in. And that was how we. I mean, for God's sake, never smoke in a ghillie suit, because you'll light yourself on fire. But,
well, I was just going to say that I guess everything has, all those things you're tying to a ghillie suit are going to have a shelf life, right? All those ferns and branches and vegetation are going to wilt pretty quickly. So having some kind of quick tie on using paracord, I guess that does make a ton of sense, that your camouflage has a shelf life at that point, right?
Yes, it does. But your shelf life is also entirely dependent on your surroundings. So if you are going from super high ferns and coniferous trees and things like that, and then you cross a road and you're in a bunch of Douglas fir and pine needles, now your camouflage doesn't match. So your shelf life is expired. It can change in less than 30 feet depending on your terrain.
So having a quick release, not on your paracord, makes a ton of sense.
Yes. So you can tie paracord knots to your ghillie suit and have that anchor point for live, or now, as soon as you pick it, dead vegetation, and travel for a bit, undo it, tie it back in with the new stuff. And I mean, as long as you're not going through snow, because you can't really tie snowballs to your suit, you'll just look like Frosty the Snowman. But whenever you change environment, yeah, you have to redo your camouflage, and paracord was one of the best ways to do that.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, great use of paracord. And I guess in something like that where you might have a green or a black or some kind of camouflagey color, you could take the strands out of that, use those separately, because what you're talking about isn't something that requires a ton of tensile strength. So you could just use the I don't know what you call it, the outer jacket of the paracord for that kind of application, right? And then you still have all this 550 strand laying around for other stuff like fishing.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to have a whole lot of it, and it doesn't have to be super. Right? You're not towing a vehicle in your ghillie suit.
Sure.
Though I have, so several years ago, went rabbit hunting with some friends, and rabbit hunting is always in the winter. He kind of drove off the road and slid into a ditch and couldn't get out with his truck. I did not have a tow strap at the time, so I pulled out my bundle of 550 and we built a tow strap. And like you were saying about the layering and how heavy you can make that stuff to tow, as long as you don't overshock it. I was able, in a 2007 Tundra, I was able to tow out his GMC 2500 out of a snowy ditch just with paracord. And it took, and I probably used, I don't know, 40 feet or so out of the bundle I had in the back of the truck. But yeah, we basically just ran it back and forth between my trailer hitch and his tow bar, and slow and steady pulled the 2500 out of the ditch. And you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, for sure. No, so paracord. I mean, I think we could go on. There's thousands and thousands of uses, but for my item for doll, like I said, it narrowly bumped out the zip ties. There were a few things I think that a zip tie is more beneficial for, but you made a good point about the UV. I think paracord's probably less susceptible to that. So you just downside, you gotta know your knots. And I know that's boring, but yeah, you have to know knots. So that's where are we at? We're getting to your number 5. What's your number 5? We're getting close.
I'm going to go with the standard dollar store lighter.
Okay. I even looked at lighters and I didn't. Yeah, it's like the big knockoff. It's the Dick brand lighter, right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, it doesn't have to be childproof. It just has to spark and not clog when you use it. And so, I mean, I'm sure that you did the same thing that I did when I was a kid. You pulled a little regulator restrictor plate off of the front of it. And
made a flamethrower?
You could get that 14-inch high flame. Not advice, by the way. Not advice, just it's doable. But yeah, you get that massive flame. You don't need that. You just need something that's going to start a fire. You need something that you can, again, signal with. And humans, our biology, we pick up on visual signals faster than we do on auditory or tactile signals. So from a distance, if you light a cigarette, you can see that with a clear line of sight. You can see that over a half mile, and that's just the cigarette cherry burning.
Yeah.
So you light a lighter, and now you can actually signal somebody. But yeah, having that lighter, having that lifeline, if things are wet, if you're having difficulty, I don't know that that's really something I would go without. I think I've got 8 or 9 between bug out bags and emergency kits and the tornado shelter. I mean, I don't know how many I've got.
The lighter is, I didn't go with the lighter, and I don't know why. I guess I was thinking that everybody had a means to make fire, but I would agree. Like, I'm a lighter 9 times out of 10 versus the the guy with the ferro rod and your flint and steel every time you got to light something on fire. I think that's just silly. I get from a preparedness and from a bushcrafty standpoint, that's cool. But you're right, nothing beats the dollar store lighter that lights every time, and it's like the can of salt. Never in your lifetime are you gonna run out of the lighter. They magically go forever.
Yeah, and if you're not, as long as you don't hit that little button to release the fuel, it will
Yep.
last thousands upon thousands of lights.
Right.
You
Right.
hit that
Right.
button and it's gone in 12 seconds.
Yeah,
You can leave it in
that's
the
right.
dryer and
Mhm.
God knows what happened to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, they will actually last a very long time. I think my brother was telling me that he found a lighter in my parents' basement that was like 1981 something ceremony or some sort of whatever. But
And it was a
it's just this
pressurized
ancient
gas
light.
lighter, not like a Zippo, like an actual pressurized gas lighter.
Yeah, and he struck it and it lit. They'll
Wow.
last a very long time.
Yeah.
So
I like it. Okay. That's
I
where
would
that's
say the
that's
lighter
where you
is definitely up there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a means to make fire is very important. And I honorable mention to I looked at a couple of different boxes of matches. I want to say maybe for the dollar you could have got the 300 count a strike anywhere. And I was probably between that and the lighter thinking, okay, the strike anywhere matches that maybe have a little more intrinsic value because they are a fire themselves. They are fuel, or the lighter. It was a toss up. And I was kind of wondering which one you were going to go with, whether you were going to go matches or lighter.
I gotta go with the little kid running around with the sparkler and going,
Yep.
somebody gave me fire.
Exactly. Oh, I like it. All right. So we're getting there.
So you're number two.
Yeah, here
you're
we
number
are.
two.
So
what are we on
going
with?
down the list. Since we only gave ourselves 6 apiece, I had to make some tough choices on what to cut out. So we're probably going to have some honorable mentions at the end, but my number 5 is the Jesus candle. Now, at the dollar store, they had the same candle in a non-Jesus version, but for the money, I say go Jesus. Or maybe I was looking at him and I was thinking about the line from The Big Lebowski where he's like, "You do not mess with the Jesus," right? The guy with the purple onesie and the Coke nail. I was looking at the Jesus
Yes.
candle, I was like, man, you got to go with the Jesus, but there were plenty of non-Jesus options. Maybe go with Our Lady of Guadalupe, even. Regardless, whether you went with the printed or non-printed version, they're a votive style candle. They're only $1, and they've got a ton of obvious uses. I'd go with a clear one just to make the best use out of the light it provides. But they do come in colors, so maybe from a tactical standpoint, from the tactical side of the argument, you might go with a color that's better for your natural night vision. Regardless, these will generally burn about 48 hours. So this could give you about 4 nights worth of light if you're not burning them during the day. The glass holds heat pretty well. Glass is a pretty decent insulator if you want to get into thermodynamics. So they do provide a little bit of warmth, right? And if you're patient, you could cook over the top of these with some kind of standoff to allow oxygen into the candle. So with that fancy can opener I just bought you could take the top off of that, take the top off a can of beans, fashion a standoff out of the lid, and place that on top of the Jesus candle, and you could heat those up. Actually, so caution. Now that I'm saying this, I realize I just created a tall, unstable game of Jenga made out of hot beans and fire. So maybe be careful with that one. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I cut you off. What you were gonna say?
But you could also, let's say you are at that point, you are forced to ration. You can open that can of beans, heat it up, eat what you need to, fold that that top back over the can of beans, and you have the wax to potentially reseal it. It's not
Oh,
going to last forever.
That's good. You do, yeah, the spare wax. You could use the wax to reseal. I didn't even think about uses for the leftover wax. You're absolutely right. I was thinking, the last part of this was this particular candle I'm talking about. I think everybody knows it's a votive style. They're big, they're a big long, they come in a glass vase. So when the candle's gone, you've got a container that you can actually use as a drinking glass or container for just about anything. So this is kind of a 2-for-1 deal. And that's why it made it very close to the top of my list. This wasn't just heat or cooking or light. It was an intrinsic last forever item when it's gone.
And they're, for the most part, I mean, non-perishable.
Non-perishable, yeah.
Go anywhere.
It has almost an unlimited shelf life. That's right. And I think you could get some decent burn time, longer burn time if you trim your wicks and things like that. So I'm thinking I might actually try to go buy the votive candle and try to make a standoff out of a lid and see if I could actually cook on the top of one of those things. I might actually just let one go and see how long it goes for and see if I can see if it is. They say 48 to 50 hours of burn time. I'm really interested to see if in a non-windy environment, if you could truly get to, whole days out of that. That would be interesting.
Well, and the other thing that you can do with it is if it is a cold environment, and my wife and I tested this down in our basement at our last house. We just wanted to see how well it would work. If you take a terracotta pot, just the standard Home Depot terracotta plain pot, it's going to cost you more than $1, so it didn't make the list. But you invert that over the top of your candle, all of the residual heat that's just rising out of that candle will be caught by that pot, and they get hot.
You're talking about the little pot that it's got a drainage hole in it. So I'm picturing this. You flip it upside down and the candle still allows oxygen in and still burns. It'll look like a lampshade at that point. Is that what you're saying?
It acts like a space heater.
Wow.
So you lose the light. You do lose the light unless you kind of elevate the terracotta pot, and you can use bricks or other little terracotta, whatever you need to elevate it. But yeah, you can turn those things into a space heater if you're in a cold environment, and they'll reach 110, 115 degrees and really put off some actual heat. And then if the candle goes out, you still have that residual heat. We have tested that one, and it does work.
I mean, if you think it makes sense, that's what you use for a crucible in metallurgy, right? When you're metalworking, they're using it's clay terracotta stuff because it never melts and it never catches fire. It just gets insanely hot, and it's a good insulator. So it does make sense. I'm picturing that now. That you turn one of those things upside down, and you're catching all of that heat that's just given off of the candle. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and granted, you can burn yourself. Case in point. But if you try to pull that thing off a little too early, you can burn yourself. But if you are in that cold environment, like up in the Pacific Northwest in the middle of winter, if you don't have power, if you don't have heat, 3 to 4 of those around your home will heat your home to at least 60 degrees. And I mean, if you throw one in your bedroom, you could potentially, you close the door, you've got, 80, 85 maybe.
Wow.
It just depends on how cold it gets outside.
Sure.
So we went camping in our basement, which was a solid bare concrete floor.
Mm-hmm.
And we were comfortable in the middle of winter.
Yeah,
and that was back when we lived in Colorado.
That's a good exercise. I like it. The terracotta planter's pot. I like it. So, all right, we're down to it then. What was the last item? What'd you go with?
You mentioned it before. I think we should go through some honorable mentions before we hit our number ones.
I don't know if my honorable mention is your number one, though. I don't know what your number one is.
I'm going to say it's not. I've got a feeling that my number one is just odd enough that it's going to catch you off guard.
Okay, I like it. What were
Some
your
of
honorable
these-
mentions then?
So some of these didn't make the list because they were either out of budget or
Mhm.
it has a very specific purpose and you can't really multitask with it.
Yeah.
But I had an atlas or maps of
Okay.
the local area,
Mhm.
water purification tablets, and work gloves or tactical gloves, like some sort of hunting or shooting glove, or just your plain
I
leather
did
work
see
gloves.
some decent rubber gloves like in a 5-pack for $1 that were on my list. It's interesting that I'm gonna go maybe a little more tactical on one of these, but those little party poppers, the little explodey pull the party popper half firework thing. I thought for a perimeter security application. I found these at the dollar store, 6 of them for $1, and you could use the strands out of that paracord bracelet and make a decent trip line and have perimeter security out of these little party poppers. So that was one of my honorable mentions, and. One I really thought you were going to go with. Maybe they just don't have them at your dollar store, but the little break and glow Rady party necklaces, the essentially the little chem lights.
Okay, the glow sticks.
So the glow stick. They're like a glow collar. They weren't a full-on glow stick, but they were these skinny little tube ones. And I really thought that might be on your list, but the chem light. And lastly, I also had coffee filters, just from the water filtration. There's some first aid uses there. Generally, though, the water filtration, if you've got a little bit of carbon and some burnt hardwood and some coffee filters, you can make fresh water. So you went with the purification tablets. I went with coffee filters as my last honorable mention.
Okay, so we were on the same page, just not the same.
We're on the
one.
same page.
I like it.
Yep. All
I
right.
like it.
So what was your last one? What'd you go with?
All right, hear me out on this one.
Okay.
A grease pencil.
All right.
A
You doing SAR patterns on a Coast Guard boat or something? You doing
so
patterns on the
your-
window? What?
Your standard either black or red grease pencil is
Mhm.
one. They don't require a sharpener because of how they're made. They're wrapped in paper and they've got that little string that you pull, and that's how you sharpen it. You just pull
Yeah.
back more paper.
Mhm.
So you don't have to worry about having a pencil sharpener or a knife if yours breaks. 2, if you break off a small chunk of that, it is flammable. So you've got your fire starting
Oh.
kindle right there.
Ooh.
And 3,
Yeah.
it will mark on anything. Glass, metal, rock, you
Sure.
name it. Skin. Yeah, it's going to hurt when you start grinding in with that grease pencil, but if you have to mark a tourniquet time on somebody's forehead or a priority code for emergency surgical, you can do it with a grease pencil. And it
I'm
doesn't rub
thinking
off
about-
like lipstick.
I'm thinking about was it in Pearl Harbor where they were doing emergency triage? They were just going and the nurses were going and writing on people's forehead, just okay, who's gonna make it and who's not, and they were just writing on the forehead real quick. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you could write on anything with it.
Exactly. In the movie and in real case scenario, the movie actually did that scene justice. They were using their own lipstick. The nurses were pulling out tubes of lipstick.
You're
cracking them open.
right. You're
and they were
right.
writing.
It wasn't grease pencil. It was lipstick. You're right. Yeah.
But what they didn't realize is some of those sailors that were injured at Pearl Harbor, they were sweating so bad because now they're in shock, understandably. But they were sweating so bad they were actually getting the lipstick off.
Oh,
Grease
okay.
pencil will not do that. It doesn't smear.
Interesting.
So if you have to mark out on a map or on a window or on a car
Sure.
door or on
Yeah.
somebody's dead body, the directions where you were going to, the
Hmm.
grease pencil will do it. And you don't
On
have
your
to
trash
worry about
bags.
multiple 100%. You don't have to worry about having multiple implements to communicate your message. You just have to do it. And if you're desperate, you can light it on fire and it will burn
Yeah.
and light your Kindle. That's why grease
Yeah.
pencil made my number one on
Nice.
budget
Okay.
list.
I couldn't have been more polar opposite from you, but I'll tell you. So for my number 6, I was really going to try to steer clear of consumables. But I couldn't resist the 99-cent bag of pinto beans. And this was honestly an afterthought for me. This was not a dollar store item. This was a regular grocery store find. Now hear me out. Hear me out. This is great. This wasn't even on sale. This was not on sale. I could go back and buy a case of these things. Hear me out. For 99 cents, you get an entire pound of pinto beans, nothing unnatural, no added preservatives, nothing bad for you, no trans poly fat stuff. The ingredients are pinto beans. This is like super glue. There's one ingredient in this thing. And the 1 pound bag, 1,440 calories of beans to be exact. That's easily a day's worth of rationed food, and surprisingly good for you. Surprisingly good for you. We're talking about 90 grams of protein. Where else can you get 90 G's of teen for 99 cents? That's like that's like damn near a G per penny. It's almost.
I can just imagine somebody pouring their protein powder drink right now, getting ready
right now,
for their
pouring it out,
and
and I'm like, pinto beans. That's what's up. It's almost exactly your USDA daily allowance of carbs, and it's 225% your daily intake of fiber. So keep the windows open. The more I think about this, we could probably parlay the 99 cents worth of beans into our alternative power episode, assuming you could harness the power of methane. But seriously, though, when SHTF happens and you're eating these very carb heavy survival foods, and Chris, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm guessing in I'm living off MRE scenario, these survival foods that are mostly salt and noodles, I think the extra fiber is going to be a lifesaver for you. So working in this natural fiber into all these weird survival foods you might be eating. Finally, the 99-cent bag of beans has virtually no expiration date. So again, a lot of items didn't make the cut, but I thought throwing out this one was important. Throw in a little of that pink Himalayan sea salt we talked about, heat them up over the Jesus candle. That is an apocalyptic Michelin 5-star level dining right there.
I can agree. And coming from experience on that MRE diet, you are 110% right on needing the extra fiber every once in a while, because
right. I thought about that if you are planning on just living off all these survival foods, and I'm not going to talk bad about anyone in particular, but these mostly salt and noodle carb heavy survival foods, this thing is a ton of protein and a ton of fiber. So you can work servings of beans into the diet in SHTF, and like I said, very a super long shelf life. So that's where I go.
You heat up your pinto beans with Himalayan sea salt over the Jesus candle.
Over the Jesus candle.
The empty Jesus candle jar to hold in what comes out after the pinto beans, and then you've got unlimited fuel for fire starting.
There's your methane. I'm telling you, we're gonna move this into our alternative power episode, because the pinto beans, it's kind of a gift that keeps giving. So maybe it is maybe it isn't completely consumable, but that's where I ended up. So I thought we had some good ones. I like I said at the beginning, going into this, I didn't think this was going to be the number 2 episode. I was like, your dollar items, but it truly is the ground floor of preparedness. If you took $12 and bought those 12 items, every one of those has intrinsic value. And by that, I mean, when you need them, they are worth way more than $1 to you.
Absolutely. And to be fair, now, we did not go into bulk buy or bulk discounts. These are all individual items that you can buy. So if you
that's right. Yeah. If you and your buddies got together and spent $10 on a 5-pound bag of rice, we didn't think about those kinds of things. These were all things that you could individually purchase for under $1. So you're exactly right. I think if we said, here's $12, I I might just go buy, 18 rounds of 30 carbine. But if if every item has to be under $1, yeah, that's right. We weren't taking economies of scale or bulk buying into account with this.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of those things that it really drives home the affordability of prepping if you're just getting started into it. So
That's right.
it's not just looking at the dollar store. I mean, you can find great deals online. You can find them in the dollar store. You can find them at Walmart, Target,
Mhm.
wherever you shop. I don't know that you're going to necessarily find a great deal at the super expensive all organic market. You might.
That's
but
right. That's right.
we're just not guaranteeing it, but find the best deal and what works for you. And that's really what this is all about, is taking control of, what are you actually going to use? What has more value in a situation or disaster or recovery or a complete shit hits the fan Teotihuacan event? What has more value than what you put into it? And that's what this is all about. So if you have, like I said at the beginning, if you've got a list of 5 items that you think are better than ours, send us an email, stakeholderprepping@gmail.com. We will review it. And if we agree, you
Absolutely.
get the whole list.
We'll send
for
you the
free.
list, and we'll send you the box of stuff that's worth way more than $12 to me. So, I think all of these things will list some of our ideas and every one of these items and where we found them on our companion blog there. So you'll see everything that made our list and some of these other little hacks that maybe you didn't think of. So we'll list all that stuff out. But no, I think this was a good
I'm
number
waiting
two.
for the link. I'm waiting for the link on our blog that when you hover over Jesus candle, it pulls up the thumbs up Jesus from Dogma.
Yes, like I said, it's not just a Jesus candle. There's the Our Lady of Guadalupe candle, and there's different colors of the same candle. But I am gonna go buy a handful of these because, one, I do want to know how long they burn for, and I do want to try to fashion some kind of stove out of one and see how good I get. See if you can cook the the can of beans or the dinty more or something. So I will try that, and I'll put some photos up. If I can take the P38 and fashion some kind of standoff / stove to heat up over the Jesus candle, I'm gonna try that.
While you're at it, if you're game to try that terracotta pot theory,
I've got a bunch of those. I have a bunch of those for garden starters. So absolutely, I totally want to see that. See how that does actually heat up and radiate. So I'm happy to do that too.
but I think we've got a pretty solid list for under $12. $12
It's
or
a
under.
solid list.
You can get all of this stuff, and it could potentially save your life and make you your own stakeholder in your own survival. And I think that's the important part.
That's exactly it. That's exactly right. All right. So come back for 3. We begged for 3. I think episode 3 is going to be totally different. I don't think we're going to do a bunch of lists. I think we'll do down a rabbit hole, or we'll do something completely different. But I think I want people to know, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, what your vision is, but I think we're going to go the whole spectrum. It's going to be the whole gamut. It's not just things like this. We're going to do some completely off the wall topics. We're going to do some very big picture stuff. This was a particularly granular episode. They're not all going to be like this, right?
I don't think so. I think we're going to have some fun with it, and we're going to do some deep dives like this and really analyze the true nuts and bolts of it. But we're also going to have some episodes in there with some of the grand theories. We're going to have some guest stars on. I've got several lined up that are field experts in field hygiene, field cooking. I've got a field expert in mechanics, so he's going to be coming on. I've got a couple of authors that I'm going to bring on that have written books regarding prepping. So
that's exciting.
We will definitely have a wide spectrum here. So if this episode doesn't do it for you, give us number 3,
Mhm.
maybe number 4. If
Maybe
you're
number
still
4,
listening at this
right?
point, just
Yep.
give us another 2.
Now you're
Uh,
in.
but I think this is truly what we're all about, is exploring prepping from every angle we can.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably going to wrap this one up. What do you say, Az?
I like it. Give it the outro.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining in. We could not do this without you. And as always, remember, the tactical comes from practical. Be your own stakeholder.